show you that. It's starting in BC, so there's a whole lot to get to. Let's get to it. First, True North is reporting, this is continuing our Nazi scandal coverage. Pierre Poilievre asks for Justin Trudeau's apology. And honestly, I thought that can't be it. That can't be the whole thing. But it was it. Here's Trudeau not taking accountability at all for his government's lack of proactive, vetting anything at all. Here we go.
It was the personal responsibility of the Prime Minister to invite President...
Too fast. Let's try that again.
Mr. Speaker, it was the personal responsibility of the Prime Minister to invite President Zelensky to the floor of this House of Commons. It was his personal responsibility to make sure it was a diplomatic success. It was his personal responsibility to continue to lead the government that has the security, intelligence, and diplomatic agencies that could have and should have vetted all individuals who were present and recognized. Yet, this Prime Minister allowed for a monumental, unprecedented, and global shame to unfold in this chamber. Will he take personal responsibility for this shame and personally apologize on behalf of himself?
Right. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of all of us in this House, I would like to present unreserved apologies for what took place on Friday and to President Zelensky and the Ukrainian delegation for the position they were put in. For all of us who were present to have unknowingly recognized this individual was a terrible mistake and a violation of the memory of those who suffered grievously at the hands of the Nazi regime.
And that's it. That's the apology. That's the whole thing, right? I thought it was 30 seconds, less than 30 seconds. Pierre Poilievre took longer asking him the question. And this is actually immediately following when I looked up if that was it, if that's all he said about the whole thing. There was a 5-minute clip. So this is immediately following that exchange. And I'll just show it to you because in this exchange, as Nadine says, she says, did Prime Minister Trudeau just admit that the government does not vet invited guests who enter the House of Commons, and even worse yet, don't do it when they have another guest who is the leader of a war-torn country? Here you go.
Official opposition.
Did the Prime Minister's national security, intelligence, or diplomatic officials vet the names of the people that the Prime Minister allowed within mere feet of President Zelensky?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the privilege and responsibilities and rights of parliamentarians are sacrosanct, and that the Leader of the Opposition would be suggesting that any visitor to this House should be vetted by the government of the day is actually a grievous attack on the rights and privileges of parliamentarians. However, if the Leader of the Opposition or the Speaker or anyone wants our intelligence agencies to vet any of their guests, we would be more than happy to do that in respect of parliamentary rights.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
So the Prime Minister has just said that he allowed the president of a war-torn country, who is perhaps the biggest target of false propaganda and of potential assassinations, to be surrounded by hundreds of people who had not been vetted for their security background, their potential risks that they present, or in this case, the massive diplomatic disasters that they could have brought to that event. Is he really saying that he did absolutely nothing to protect the Ukrainian president from all of those many risks?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the facts are well known here. The Speaker issued the invitation, delivered the recognition, and has taken full responsibility. The Leader of the Opposition knows that not one parliamentarian was aware, but the truth does not matter to this Leader of the Opposition.
The question does not matter to this Prime Minister. He will answer the question that he wants to answer and not the question that was asked. Unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. And just to be clear, the question was, are you serious? You didn't vet anybody? You didn't vet this Waffen SS dude? And his answer was, Speaker Rhoda didn't vet anybody. So Speaker Rhoda is firmly under the bus, and they're backing the bus up to run him over again. And every time anybody questions it, they will run over him again. White Rabbit says, I'd like to remind everyone that just 9 years ago, a soldier was murdered on Parliament Hill in Ottawa. Today, Trudeau tries to make the claim that the government isn't responsible for vetting guests to the House of Commons when a foreign head of state visits. He's either flat out lying or our entire establishment is a joke. The blame lies entirely on him. I would agree. Melissa Lantzman says, an apology made on behalf of another institution, citing someone else's responsibility while instructing MPs to try and wipe out the parliamentary record is not an apology. And Melissa Lantzman's good. She's got lots of good rhetoric, but I don't want to play that one. We'll just keep moving on here. Joe Warmington is responding to this. Jackie Budden says, I guess he didn't get Karina Gould's memo about not making this a partisan issue. Not to mention, if you thought this would make him think twice about making careless and dangerous comparison to Nazis, think again. So this is the clip of Justin Trudeau saying to Poilievre, maybe you shouldn't meet with right-wing figureheads like Christine Anderson, which is hilarious considering what his government did on Friday, right? And Joe Warmington says, is this for real? Justin Trudeau offering Poilievre advice on how to vet people to avoid meeting with Nazis at the same time sitting where he's apologizing for the invitation of a Nazi. Classic Trudeau. Here we go. I think we've already heard this, but I'll play it one more time just in case.
Mr. Speaker, I will note that to this day, the leader of the official opposition has not apologized for having had 3 MPs, including one of them who is still part of his leadership team, sit down to dine with a far-right German politician a number of months ago. No recognition, no apologies, no consequences for those 3 MPs who engaged with a far-right German politician. Mr. Speaker, if the leader of the opposition wants the government to help him vet those his MPs meet with, we'd be more than happy to give him some better advice.
Like bringing in a Waffen SS Nazi to meet with people? Goodness me. And to be clear, Christine Anderson is not a Nazi and not affiliated with the Nazi party, unlike the person that these guys brought in. Stephanie Kuzi says, I'll be moving this motion at OGG tomorrow to determine how this embarrassing event occurred on Friday in the House of Commons. And I hope other committee members will agree we need to find out what happened, what went wrong, so this never happens again. The world is watching. And so this is the notice of motion. Given the international embarrassment created by the Liberal government by allowing a former soldier of a Nazi military unit in World War II to attend and be recognized during the President of Ukraine's special address to Parliament on Friday, September 22nd, and that proper vetting was either not done or this individual's military record was ignored, the committee dedicated 6 meetings holding hearings to look into this matter, and the committee hear witness testimony from representatives of the following: the Department of Foreign Affairs, the RCMP, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, Parliamentary Protective Service, House of Commons, International and Interparliamentary Affairs, the Sergeant of Arms, Privy Council Office, and Prime Minister's Office. These things always go so well, right? Always. Lots of hours of tape and lots of back and forth. And you can't ask me that question, and so on and so forth. I don't see us getting to the bottom of this, but hey, fingers crossed. I hope it answers some questions, but I don't think it will. Here's Yuri, and he says, I was quite shocked to discover that Jaroslav Hunka, the Nazi veteran invited to the House of Commons, was actually previously honored, along with several dozen other Waffen SS veterans, by the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress in 2007. Notably, the Ukrainian ambassador to Canada was a special guest at the ceremony and gave a celebratory speech. So there you go. You can see the link here, and there's clippings of the Congress, the Ukrainian-Canada Congress, and the Toronto branch, and this is part of the announcement in the newspaper, and so on and so forth. And you can see there's his name. It's Jaroslav Hunka, right? So it's very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff going on. Yuri continues. Previously in 2003, Hunka represented the very same Ukrainian-Canadian Congress at the 8th Ukrainian World Congress in Kiev. Since 1989, he frequently visited Ukraine and even ran for Parliament in 1994. In 2004, he was made an honorary citizen of Brezhny. War criminals Stephen Bandera and Roman S. were given the same honor in 2011. So this isn't just a Trudeau problem either. It's very interesting. Given Chrystia Freeland's close ties with the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress, I can't help but wonder whether she knew Yaroslav Hunka personally and or was well aware of his invitation to the House. Translated photographs of the honorary citizen of Berezi, I'm getting that wrong, Yaroslav Hunka, Stephen Bandera, and Roman S. So very, very interesting ties. Here's Andrew Lawton, and he says the University of Alberta is returning a $30,000 donation from Nazi veteran Yaroslav Hunka's family, so they're very well off. Andrew Lawton again said, while a student, Chrystia Freeland contributed to an encyclopedia that played down the Nazi connections of the 14th Waffen-SS. If there's anyone in the House of Commons who knows about this unit and its history, it's her. I mean, all roads lead to Chrystia Freeland, right? Like, she absolutely knew more, and she was very happy clapping in the House of Commons for him. Max Blumenthal says, in my latest, I cite this 1997 60-minute special, Canada's Dark Secret, which exposed Ottawa's post-war policy of welcoming Nazi SS veterans. A historian recalls how Pierre Trudeau told him his government hid the Nazi criminals and documents how Ukrainian Baltic immigrants received instant Canadian citizenship by showing the SS tattoo. This proved you were an anti-communist. So there you go. You read it there. So it's very interesting, I find. And part of this report as well talks about how they've come here and lived here peacefully ever since. So this was 1997, 60 Minutes. I haven't watched the whole thing yet, so apologies that I haven't watched it. We'll watch the first minute and a half. It talks about a private investigator who's hunting down former Nazis. So here we go.
The traditional cold calm of Canada has been shattered by a meddling American who for 2 years has been tracking down alleged Nazi war criminals living in Canada.
People who with their own hands killed Jews, shot them, stabbed them, beat them to death.
It's a remarkable story that somebody can walk across the border and find war criminals that our Royal Canadian Mounted Police have been unable to find for 50 years.
Only now, a full half-century after the end of World War II, are we beginning to learn the truth about some bitter realities hidden from public view back then. First, that the Swiss did very profitable business with the Germans during that brutal war and deprived the Nazis' Holocaust victims and their families of their rightful property. Well, now comes Canada's dark secret. That Canada's government apparently welcomed thousands of Nazi war criminals into Canada at war's end, where they have lived comfortably and peacefully ever since. And only now has Canada begun to acknowledge its complicity and its shame. The traditional cold calm of Canada has been shaken by, of all things, a meddling American, an unorthodox private detective from Brooklyn named Stephen Rombaugh. For 2 years, mostly at his own expense, he has been tracking down Canada's alleged war criminals after getting their names from the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Jerusalem.
The vast majority of the people who we selected from the list of 1,000 to pursue are people who with their own hands killed Jews, shot them, stabbed them, beat them to death. Now, there are also a number of these war criminals who, while for the most part they may not have pulled the trigger, they coordinated the rounding up and the execution of thousands of Jews.
How do you coordinate the rounding up?
So, I mean, there's obviously more to get into here, but it's very interesting that this was widely talked about in 1997, and Sidewinder was buried in the same year, right? There was an RCMP CSIS report called Sidewinder. You can look it up online if you're interested. I talked about it before, and it was buried by John Chrétien the same year. This is a long-standing issue. Sidewinder talks about Chinese interference, and of course, this is a different kind of interference, but still, right? There's lots of very, very coincidental things that keep popping up. Maxime Bernier responds to this. This is a May 17th, 2018 article from the Ottawa Citizen. Canadian government comes to the defense of Nazi SS and Nazi collaborators, but why? And that's a David Puglisi piece. I've cited him before. And Bernier says, it's not an isolated incident. The Liberals have a habit of whitewashing the Nazi presence in Ukraine. When Russia condemned monuments to the Waffen SS Galactica division, that's so wrong, in Canada a few years ago, the Trudeau government similarly called it disinformation and came up with a plan to defend Ukraine's Nazi collaborators. So, interesting. All of it is interesting. Cat Canada is citing this piece from True North from March 15th, 2022. Trudeau Freeland met with Ukrainian neo-Nazi party co-founder. And it says Trudeau and Freeland, this guy was an influential member of Ukraine's far-right neo-Nazi movement. He co-founded the Nazi-styled Social National Party of Ukraine, a party focused on racial nationalism that even adopted the Nazi wolf's angel symbol as its logo. How many run-ins with Nazis does that make for the Trudeau Liberals? So there's quite a lot there, right? There's quite a lot of history there. Ezra Levent says the deceptively named anti-hate extremist group funded by Trudeau hasn't uttered a single word about the actual Nazi being cheered in Parliament by the government. Their only article is one attacking Poland for wanting to extradite the Nazi. They really are pro-Nazi. Very interesting stuff here. Dan Albus is saying this is a failure. The CBC is reporting Trudeau apologizes after a Ukrainian Nazi veteran was celebrated at Zelensky's address to Parliament. But this is the quote. Liberal caucus sources have told CBC News that Trudeau told MPs Wednesday they should avoid speaking to the press about Junca's invitation and the subsequent fallout, and that the media frenzy would die down if they stayed tight-lipped. I don't know. I've been looking at the responses to Trudeau, and a lot of times the likes outpace the comments. But the comments are all F you Nazi, basically. People are upset. And the likes are outpacing the comments. He gets like 1,500 likes and easily 3,000 comments. Some of them are just middle finger. Some of them are FU. Some of them are, Nazi scum, things like that. So it's very, very interesting. He's touched a nerve and people are pissed. And if you're the ruling party, you don't want to see ratios on every tweet for your leader. And that's happening, right? That's everything he says. We've done this for parents. Parents are saying F you Nazi. So it's very interesting. Very, very interesting stuff. So will this be the scandal that sinks Trudeau? We can hope. I can hope. We can hope, right? That's okay. Hope's an all right thing. Montreal Gazette is reporting 4 MPs, 2 Liberals, a Conservative, and an NDPer plan to run for Speaker after Rhoda's resignation. So it's interesting. The Conservative MP who's running is already the Deputy Speaker right now. Here's just a part of the article. 4 MPs have declared they want to be selected to replace Anthony Rhoda when MPs vote on his replacement next week. Rhoda is the first Speaker to resign under pressure from MPs after he welcomed as a guest in the House of Commons and led a standing ovation for a Ukrainian veteran of a Nazi unit during a visit by a Ukrainian president. His resignation takes effect at the end of the day Wednesday. The Conservative MP Chris D'Entremont, I'm probably getting that wrong, but maybe I accidentally got it right. Currently, the Deputy Speaker has declared his interest in running for the position, although he acknowledges it was rare for an opposition MP to be named Speaker. We are working as much as we can with all parties, he said. D'Entremont said he believes there needs to be more decorum in the House, more respect for one another. Liberal MP Greg Fergus said he would be putting his name forward as well. He said the House of Commons needs to have frank, honest debate, but it also needs to be a place where people can speak. Each one of the 338 members of Parliament have a right to be in the House to express themselves and not to be intimidated, making sure that they can freely express themselves, Fergus said. Liberal MP Alexandra Mendez is another one, and an NDP MP Carol Hughes has put her name forward as well. So it'll be interesting to see who is wielding the Speaker's, I don't know, I was going to say gavel, but I don't think we have a gavel. I think we have a scepter or is it a scepter? They carry a scepter in. So anyway, regardless of that, I wonder who will be the next Speaker. Here is Ace of Spades. They say Anthony Rhoda didn't resign, which is true. He only resigned the Speaker position. He stepped down as Speaker of the House. He agreed to be the scapegoat. As the MP for Nipissing, he will still get his $225,000 a year salary, 135 working days, and a bonus for taking the blame. No Speaker has the authority to invite guests without vetting. Yes, indeed. Although, again, the person that we're talking about has been honored previously, and people who are associated with the things that he's associated with have all been honored too, right? And so would he easily be vetted? If somebody said he's been honored before, he's been here before, here's the previous vetting. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to canadapoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful